Hey, what's up y'all? This is William, the Permaculture Consultant, and today is another Permaculture Q&A. Now remember, if you have a permaculture question that you're wanting answered, then leave it down below in the comment section with the hashtag Permaculture Q&A at the beginning of it. Also, if you need a permaculture consultation, then hit up the email down below. Also, me and Emily and the baby will be at the Homestead Jamboree. I think it's the end of August. It's all linked down below. All the details are down below. Can't wait to see you guys there. So I did open up the bees up at the front of the property earlier today, and they're still not quite happy about that. So if you see some random cuts or random jumps, then it's because I'm running from bees, basically. They're still mad that I opened up their hive. So yeah, that's the issue. But what I wanted to get into today before we got into the permaculture Q&A is that Donald Trump isn't gonna save you. Like, he is just a person. He is not Jesus, who we actually need is Jesus, not Donald Trump. I'm not saying this isn't like a pro Donald Trump message or an anti Donald Trump message. This is an indifferent message. That's what this is. Every single time, here's what's irritating and here's what's concerning, is that as soon as Donald Trump gets into office, so many homesteaders, so many people in the preparedness community are just gonna go right back into the matrix because it gets comfortable for a while. Well, guess what? Donald Trump can't do anything. He can't change the fact that the US dollar is going to collapse. He can maybe prolong the death. He can maybe hasten the death, but the dollar is going to collapse. This isn't like a conspiracy theory. This isn't like an if, and, or but. It's just a fact. It has to. Like, it has to go through this death. He can't save you from that. There's going to be hard times whenever that happens. He can't save you from that. What you can do, though, this isn't like a message of just doom and gloom, as Dad would say. This isn't a message of doom and gloom. This is a message to get us right back on track. I know with this whole shooting and everything, everybody's thinking that, you know, Trump is chosen by God to be our president. That may be accurate. That might be inaccurate. Either way, it doesn't matter. Do not change the course. We still need to build parallel economies. We still need to build not sustainable, but resilient, regenerative communities, because things happen. Like, it's just the way of the world. Things are gonna happen. What if there's an issue with the supply chain? Well, it doesn't matter because you got a community that all produces food. What happens when there is some sort of attack on the power grid? Doesn't matter. Or let's say something that happens every single year. There's a tornado that rolls through Texas, and wipes out the power supply for your community. I know these seems like basic things to just prepare for, but believe it or not, and Dad is the one that made me aware of this pattern, and now that I'm old enough to have witnessed the pattern myself, I see it as well, is that whenever there's a Democrat in office, all the preparedness people, all the homesteader people, they just go full court press on homesteading and preparedness. That's what they do. As soon as a Republican gets back in office, it's like, oh, things are just hunky-dory. He's gonna take care of everything. Now I also know that there's gonna be a lot of people that are immediately offended by what I'm saying. I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not anti-Trump. I am indifferent to the man and the position that he holds. Look, y'all, all I'm saying is that no matter who's in office, like Jack Spirko says, this is a way to live if times get tough or even if they don't. This is a very satisfying, fulfilling way to live. We need to build resilient communities. We need to stay on course and we need to not just relax just because we have our favorite president in office again. Snowflakes aren't delegated to just the left. They're on the right too. And a lot of people are going to be whining and crying because I'm saying something not even negative towards Trump. All I'm saying, literally all I'm saying, is just because Trump is office, A, he cannot save you, and B, we should still stay the course. We still should be putting back food because things happen, like hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, all kinds of natural disasters happen, not even including the man-made manufactured disasters that happen as well. So that being said, this isn't a message of hate. This isn't a message of doom and gloom. This is a reminder that no matter who's in office, we need to stay on track. So with that being said, let's move on to the permaculture Q&A for today. This one's from Green Grow Spaces. Hey William, if the only area you have for cultivation is in an area that is prone to flooding with heavy rains, what steps would you take towards mitigating against crop loss in this scenario? So depending on what your property layout is like, you could go with a system called like chinampas. Now they won't be the traditional chinampas that you see like in South America with the ponds and the fingers that go out into the pond and stuff like that. In fact, we actually have, it's not very cleared up, you can't see it too well, but we actually have an example of that here at the permaculture demonstration site around the pond that we already have existing. There's little chinampa fingers that come off the edge of the pond, which give you, it increases the edge of the pond, which increases the growing capabilities, but you can kind of see them right here. So right there is the edge of the pond, and it follows the tip of my finger, comes in this way, and then goes back out this way. And then it goes back around that way, and then comes back in right over here. You can see a little bit through there, comes back in right through here. And then it goes back out, creates a finger, and then it comes, oh, actually almost stepped in it because there's vines over it. But it comes back out right over here, and it increases the edge. It also gives you the ability to plant on these little fingers. So what you could basically do is create, like in your cultivated area, the place where you plan on planting, you could do basically raised beds. So mark out your rectangles for your beds, and then basically the walkway that would be, or the area that would be your walkway for planting, like right through here. There's the walkway, or there's the walkway for the tomatoes. If I were to take basically my designated walkway, excavate from the walkway, and then pile it up onto the bed where the tomatoes are, then you give a place for the flood to go, where the torrential downpour can actually go and sink down low and keep your beds basically dry. Gives you the ability to raise the ground level just a little bit and then lower it somewhere else, because you know water is always going to find the lowest point. So that's one thing you could do. Another thing you could do is maybe some earthworks like swales. Maybe you can use swales to divert the water, or any other kind of earthworks. Maybe you can use swales to divert the water and have it exit somewhere else. Because remember, one cool thing about like a swale right here is that it captures the water, and then you can determine anywhere along the length of the swale where that water exits the swale. Ooh, there's bees coming. Gotta run. Those are still mad. But anyway, you can put the swale overflow anywhere along the length of that swale that you want to. So that might be an option. But the chinampas, that would be pretty doggone cool. I would also make sure that those beds aren't on contour if you have any kind of slope, or if the water is coming in at any kind of speed, because you could just create like a potential mudslide. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that gives you some ideas. On to the next question. This next one is from Victoria LG 1270. I'm in zone 6A, but I am also high altitude, and this year my last frost was June 20th. So dang. So would that mean the best fruit trees for me would have high chill hours? Trees I have tried in the past have flowered way too early and buds got lost to late frosts. P.S. Bone sauce sure does keep the deer away. I am now testing it for moles. So first things first, if you don't know, bone sauce is an all-natural deer repellent that my dad makes. It's the only deer repellent in our experience that actually works. We've tried every other method. We couldn't even grow fruit trees in North Carolina until Dad started making bone sauce. So if you want some, check out permapasturesfarm.com. Bone sauce is listed there. Anyway, back to the rest of the video. Yeah, I would look for plants that have long chill hours, that require long chill hours. In fact, I wrote some down. Honeycrisp and Red Delicious apples, they have long chill hours requirements. The Contender Peach seems to have really long really long chill hours, as well as the Encore and the Alberta. But you could also do chestnuts, nut trees. They require usually long chill hours and stuff like that. So you could do chestnuts, you could do some varieties of pecans, you could also do hazelnuts, stuff like that. Now, if you go to, I would also look for species that bloom late in the year. Not necessarily long chill hours, but they bloom later in the year. Like if you go to an online bare root nursery, they're going to have an option where you can plug in, this is where you need to be careful. They're gonna have an option where you can plug in your zone. The downside of that is that everything that they show you, you just assume that you can plant outside because it's a tree and that's where most trees are. That's not the case. They will still show you trees that don't necessarily grow in your zone unless they're in a greenhouse or a high tunnel or in a patio type scenario where you can bring them in the winter. So keep that in mind. You don't want to have to, you know, move a whole orchard in and out of your house every time the season changes. Check out those varieties. I would look for things that bloom late in the season, see how that goes, and hopefully that is helpful to you. Also, something else you could do is experiment with microclimates. For example, this pond right here is going to give me some resilience to those late spring and, in your case, early summer frosts because of the high specific temperature of the water. It's very hard to change the water's temperature. So let's say it's sunny all day, this pond heats up, it has a course of like 2 or 3 days of full sun and it's heating up that entire time. At night, it's going to release some of that heat and protect any trees planted along the edge of the pond from those late spring frosts. So hopefully that helps. That's not a bad technique to do. Also, if you make sure that your blooms aren't getting like first light, make sure that the atmosphere around the blooms warms up before there's direct light on your frozen blooms or blossoms, then that should help protect it as well. So hopefully that helps. This one is from 3-4. Obviously, flowers attract insects, but can you elaborate on what type of flowers attract what type of insects? I know certain flower arrangements attract predators, some bees, some hummingbirds, etc. Also, the time of year the flower is in bloom impacts what it attracts. I was just hoping for a little clarification and more detailed answers so I can be more mindful towards what I plant. My goal is to not only have year-round blooms, but to consistently support a diverse group of insects. So this question is more... I'm not going to give you specific flower arrangements because that part doesn't matter as much. What matters is that you're building a healthy system, an overall system. Don't worry about necessarily planting specific trees or specific plants in a certain arrangement to attract specific insects. If you have the prey, the predators will show up, as long as you don't have any negative practices or anything. As long as you're not spraying a bunch of insecticide, herbicide, and all that type of stuff. As long as you keep a healthy ecosystem. So for example, I would love to go up there right now, but the bees are angry. Bunch of snowflake bees. But anyway, for an example, like the swales up at the front of the property, they have a bunch of different species of plants growing on those mounds. There isn't necessarily one species there that was planted just for the bees, but all of the bees benefit from these swales. Also, having a mixture of variety, not necessarily for the mixture of variety isn't to attract the beneficial insects. The mixture of the variety is to build a more resilient system, like we were talking at the beginning of this video. That's what the mixture of this is for. Also, if one pest comes out here, it's not going to wipe out everything because I have a variety of fruits and vegetables and all that stuff growing out here. I don't have just one fruit tree growing out here. I have a bunch of different varieties. So let's say a peach, anyway, you get the point as far as that goes. Creating a healthy system is going to naturally invite the good guys. I'm not raising specific bacteria for my garden. I'm not raising specific nematodes for my garden. What I'm doing is facilitating the conditions for optimum growth of all those guys. And then I let them decide who needs to be where and what needs to be doing what. You know what I mean? The whole point is that I create a healthy system, and that should be the role of any good permaculture design consultant, is that I'm not going to give you specific details on, hey, this is the best technique to plant your tomatoes, but I'm going to show you how to create a system that makes tomatoes thrive. For example, my tomatoes over here, I don't know if you can see those red dots or not, but those are thriving. And I do absolutely almost no maintenance on them. I haven't watered in I don't know how long, since, what was it, April or March or something like that? That's the last time I watered this garden. And if you don't know, this is zone 8A East Texas, where it's hot all the time, even at night. So hopefully that gives you a better understanding. Our goal should be creating healthy systems, not just specific little islands of intent. Does that make sense? This one is from Vanessa Connor 5000. Hi, William. I have 10 acres of former Christmas tree farm, so tons of stumps everywhere. Also, we have a permanent supply of gophers, moles, and voles. Add to that, it's been no spray for a decade, and there is a healthy crop of Bermuda grass throughout. I'm turning part of it into fruit tree guilds, and by hand. It took me ages to clear the weeds and stumps for one guild, and large equipment is not in my price range. How would you go about addressing the smaller, less than an acre that I'm planning to convert to food production? One at a time, all at once, in bite-sized pieces? Thanks for lending us all your expertise. Thank you so much for commenting. All right, so for this example, we're gonna go back into the silvopasture area, and this is a good example. Now, this was, largely cleared with a truck, a chainsaw, and some straps, and myself, obviously. And you saying you don't have power equipment, but it sounds like all the Christmas trees are gone from the farm. So that could be a plus. So what I would recommend doing, especially if you're doing it by hand, and especially if you're by yourself, I would recommend doing this in bite-sized chunks. Like this area right here, all the way up past the truck, and then all the way to where you can see that dense thicket of trees I have cleared. The reason I stopped there was that's where the fence ends. That's not where the property ends, but that's where the fence that we put up so far ends. Also, this is all that I can manage for right now. I can't manage the rest of that back area until everything up there is squared away. So I'm only going to conquer areas that I can keep conquered. If I have to come back through and do this whole process over again, then that's extremely inefficient, and I'm just creating more compaction of the soil, creating more just work for myself and stuff like that. So I only want to clear once. I'm only going to take bite-sized pieces at a time. So whatever for sure that you can handle at once, that's what I would clear, especially if it's taking you a long time to clear all the stumps and all that type of stuff. Because if you leave the soil naked, nature is going to cover itself up. So you can either choose what nature covers itself up with, or nature can choose. And I can guarantee you, nature's choice is not going to be as beneficial as what you choose. So hopefully that helps. Now this one is a quick one from Northside Dork. This has probably been covered before, but I have heard a lot of people say pee on your compost. Will this help a compost pile? I would say if you're not on any medications, and if you're taking vitamins and mineral supplements and stuff like that, then you're probably good to go. But if you're on some sort of prescription or something, then I would not be peeing in your compost, because it's one way that it could accumulate, especially if you're doing it over and over again. Also, I would only do it when, you can for sure do it, and it's definitely going to heat up your compost. But if your compost is already at 170 degrees, then I wouldn't go peeing on your compost, because it's already hot enough and it doesn't need that extra nitrogen. So if you're needing it to heat up a little bit and you already have to pee, go ahead, go pee on your compost. But it's not absolutely necessary, and it's not always appropriate. Like I said, if it's too hot already, don't pee on your compost. That's not going to help. This one is from user J09LJ1DQ3L. I'm going to start getting leftover produce from a grocery store for composting. Is there anything that I shouldn't put in the compost for the 18-day compost method besides stone fruit pits and avocado pits and peels? Not that I can think of, but I wouldn't even not include those things. I would include the pits, I would include the peels and all that stuff. They're also not causing any harm. They might not break down all the way. That's not the end of the world. If you do come across it whenever you're using it to, if you're turning compost into potting soil, for example, just pull those things out. It's not the end of the world, and they're not creating any harm, and they're, in my opinion, not worth the effort to go through and filter through your trash can, especially if you're getting, pig scraps from or food scraps from not pig scraps. If you're getting food scraps from a Mexican restaurant, for example, and they make a lot of guacamole, I wouldn't take the effort to go through and pull out all the skins and pull out all the pits and stuff like that. Also, if you're going to a grocery store or an orchard and you're getting your stuff from there, I wouldn't go through the process of de-pitting or removing all the pits from your fruit. Just throw it in there, it'll decompose, and if you want it out, you can just toss it out at the end. No big deal. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget, if you have a permaculture Q&A that you want answered, then leave it down below in the comment section with the hashtag permaculture Q&A at the beginning of it. If you need a consultation, hit up the links down below. Remember, Donald Trump cannot save you. Even if he wanted to, he could not save you, because he's just human. He's just a person. He's just a person that we all agreed to elect into a particular office. He doesn't have any superpowers. He doesn't have any special abilities. He's just human. What you need to do is look out for yourself and your community, make sure that they're squared away first, and then you can start pushing out into like a national whatever. Hopefully this video was helpful. Until next time, we'll see you.